Here at the Proximity Podcast, we live in the dangerous middle, holding these tensions in love, full of grace and truth. This podcast should be seen both as a conversation and a connection with our friends and neighbors to talk about the things that matter most. Not every view that is shared on the Proximity Podcast is the opinion or the value of Mission Church. Well, welcome to Proximity. This is a podcast for Mission Church, and we are continuing a series called The Lost Art of, exploring timeless practices that are often overlooked by our culture today. And so today we are actually getting a bonus episode of this series, and we get to talk to my friend Gina. And she is the store manager of our local Starbucks. Gina, would you introduce yourself to our friends and would you share something unique about you?
Of course. Hello, friends. I am Gina Kurowski. Like Danny said, I am a store manager at a Starbucks locally. Fun fact, I'm obsessed with dogs.
Really?
Like any dog. I do have two huskies. One's a Siberian and the other one is a Malamute. But yes, I'm obsessed with dogs.
Those are gorgeous dogs. You don't know this about me, but I used to work at a vet clinic. I was the pooper scooper in high school, so I got to clean out all the kennels and all that kind of good stuff. And so I love dogs, and I have one that's a bit of a drama queen right now. But today's conversation for us is really around service. And service is something that we all experience, whether it's at home or work, at play, in our neighborhoods, and specifically in our churches. But to build a culture of service, for it to consistently be that from, Starbucks opens at the crack of dawn, and many of them are open, some of them 24 hours, but yours is open into good parts of the evening, pretty late.
Yep.
It's to be consistent, it has to be deeply personal. Okay. It has to be something that matters to people, to where there's a culture of care and trust and community. Now, many of our listeners probably are not going to get a chance to go through the Wedgwood Starbucks in Maple Grove, but what makes your Starbucks unique?
Oh gosh. Starbucks is a Starbucks, but I know it sounds kind of cringy sometimes to say that your work people are like your family, but I really truly believe that we have this relationship with each other, that we just care for each other. And I think, the reason why I'm here partly is because that care, I think, exudes to the customers as well. So I think that, it's not necessarily super unique, but I'm very proud of our team, and I would say it's definitely unique to the area.
What I love about your question, so I live in the church world, and when somebody asks, what's your church like, people automatically think building. And if I was asking you about Starbucks from a building perspective, you would, and I might have you explain this a little bit because yours is a little bit different, but you're starting with people first, the interaction and the connection between those who are behind the counter and those who are in front of the counter, and how there's just this automatic connection. Now, can you describe a little bit, you say Starbucks is Starbucks, and that is true, but Starbucks is diversifying its portfolio constantly. It seems like whenever I travel, the only Starbucks that comes up on my maps are the ones that are in Target. I'm not trying to go in Target.
Oh, sure.
Or it's the ones that are drive-through only. I like to go pull out my laptop, take a few hours to actually get some work done.
Yeah.
Talk about your environment, the actual building, the actual volume that comes through and things like that.
Definitely. So we are definitely a community store. My store has been open since 1998. So we were one of the first Starbucks really in the metro area. We took over a Boston Market.
Oh, yeah.
Remember Boston Market?
Yeah.
We took over Boston Market and opened up a Starbucks, and it's a very large Starbucks. So I think especially in the most recent years, the stores that have been opening are very small, definitely like drive-through forward, where my store has about 75 seats in it.
Oh, wow.
So it's a fairly large location. Like I said, very community-based, a lot of regulars, lots of people that come in for, friend meetings, business meetings, lots of interviews that happen at my store. It's just a very community-based place to be.
Well, I'm thankful that one of the things that always makes me nervous is interviews, things like that going on. At least that Jerry Maguire moment never happens where somebody gets fired. That hasn't happened in there. That would be a real killer for relationships. But So let me talk to you a little bit about this. Let's start with this concept. You said every location, every Starbucks is a Starbucks. Let's unpack that for a little bit. What are the things that if you go into a Starbucks, you would want people to expect, whether drive-through or whatever, a Starbucks is a Starbucks? What's that mean?
Sure. I think, obviously there's going to be coffee, right? Mm-hmm. There's going to be people in green aprons. I feel like there's going to be people bustling around and things like that. People greeting people, saying, hi, how's your day? You're going to get the smells of both the food and the coffee. In my mind, ideally, you would see people hanging out, working on their laptop, having conversations with other people.
It's nice because that happens pretty much automatically there. And I've gotten a chance now to know a little bit of your team. You've gone through a little bit of probably an evolution process of mastering just the art of the hire, the art of the training, and the art of retention. Give our listeners a little bit of a background of how long have you been connected with Starbucks and what have been the shifts and the pieces that you've noticed over the years to help hone some of those skills towards a good culture, towards service?
Yeah. Well, I have worked at Starbucks collectively for about 16 years. When I started as a barista and moved my way all the way up to store manager. So there's been different shifts in, that kind of mindset. But as far as management goes, I think a lot of it is just trial and error. A lot of it also just depends on who your leader is. There's definitely cyclical challenges that happen every year, no matter how well or poor you plan for them.
Yeah.
For example, we always have an influx of people that want to work more during the summer. So kind of that April, May, and then also towards the end of August, early September, when everyone kind of goes back to school. So definitely school schedules help with that.
Yeah.
Or hurt, depending on.
Yeah.
But I think partially the reason that I'm able to retain so many people is because, again, it happens every year. And I think just as time has gone on, I've just been able to plan for that better and have different conversations with the people that work for me and know, kind of when they're coming, when they're going, so that I can get people in and it's not just, 10 new people at the beginning of September and everybody's scrambling situation.
Yeah. One of the things that I really have enjoyed in getting to learn about our Starbucks that you work at, I attend and invest quite a bit towards, is, learning the names, the faces, and the stories of what's going on behind the counter. We talked a little bit about how you hire and recognizing who's a good fit for you. And if not for you, they may be a good fit for Starbucks and how to get them there. How do you go through that process? And can you give me an example of what being interviewed by Gina is like and to the person across you, and then what you're looking for in that engagement from those people?
Yeah, definitely. So obviously as a corporation, we have a list of questions that go over, it kind of hits all of our values that we have at the company. For me, I think it's really important to make that person feel comfortable. I feel like you get more genuine answers where it's not, they don't just have to automatically think of something. You're allowing them time to think about an actual interaction that they had or an actual situation that they've been in. And I think it just puts them at ease. So I'm the type of person who will divulge lots of information about myself because I feel like that makes people feel comfortable.
Yeah.
So, I'll kind of start joking with them at the beginning of the interview. I always ask them, tell me a little bit about yourself, kind of like we did here.
Yeah.
Try to find that piece that, I can connect with or ask them a question about if I don't know about it, just to make them comfortable. And then what I'm really looking for is obviously somebody that, can communicate well. So I always look for people's smiles. especially when they're talking about situations where they've been in that, they've had great customer service or they've been able to provide great customer service. And in my mind, I think that like seeing them smile kind of brings them back to the time where they're actually thinking about that situation and like why it was memorable for them or why that made them feel good.
That's intriguing to me. For me, I look through almost everything through a lens of church dynamics, and so I critiqued at the beginning kind of saying, let's talk about Starbucks. Starbucks is not a building. It's the people and the relationships is kind of how we address that. You talk about the interview process and you talk about you're looking for smiles, you're looking for joy, you're looking for memories and pieces that they can tangibly express from a sense of personal relationship. And I think sometimes I would assume that I think of Starbucks as transactional or task oriented. Mm-hmm. Can they make a good espresso? Can they do this? And those things are important.
Of course.
I've seen the clientele that buys your drinks, and if something gets goofed up, they can be a little intense.
Yes.
Not very often, but it only takes one, right?
Yep.
To shift a whole morning. But I'm amazed that your culture gets the task and gets the transaction, but ultimately it's in that transformational relationship, it's in that engagement that all of a sudden people, what I've seen enough in my time there that people are addressed by their name, stories come up, questions are asked about what's going on in people's lives. And I'm like, oh, there's relationship here. Tell me, is that Starbucks 101, or is this is the culture of what makes your store? You put that emphasis on that syllable, so to speak, to get people to understand what's going on.
I think it's definitely Starbucks 101. That is something that, especially with our new CEO, like we're really just trying to create that genuine connection with people. When I first started at Starbucks, we literally had a whole class, like an 8-hour day about like how to provide, what they called it, legendary customer service. Mm-hmm. And I think, like you said, as time goes on, things change. Mm-hmm. And I think there's always kind of been that underlying, like, trying to be genuine. Yeah. But I think a lot of it became very transactional. Mm-hmm. And now we're trying to go back to Starbucks. Mm-hmm. You probably heard that, which I love because like that's why I stayed at Starbucks for so long, was because you just create such genuine connections both with the people that you work with and your customers. And I'm such a people-based person that getting to know people and knowing their lives, especially when you're seeing them every day or multiple times a week, that's really important to me because I don't want to just be like, hey, Danny, and then know absolutely nothing about you,
Yeah.
It just feels weird.
Yeah.
Because I feel like you're here every day. I should know who you are.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what probably impacts me the most is we live in Minnesota nice culture.
Yeah.
And so just the acknowledgement of somebody happens in almost any place that you show up. Whether you're seen, known, and valued is a whole different conversation. And so even, in the church world, we have people that by droves show up in buildings, and anonymity is what they want. At the same time, you have these other churches where people are known, but they're known so well, there's an insider group. The swimming experience, so to say, if we're using Starbucks as a metaphor, jumping in the pool, there's a variety of swimmers in that room. There are some that have no idea what to order. Is it small, medium, large? What are the language you guys are using? Why do you do it? So you use the phrase in that process of back to Starbucks. Mm-hmm. What does specifically back to Starbucks mean? Yeah.
So it means, bringing people back into the stores, welcoming them into the store. I'm sure you've realized, we want people to stay. Mm-hmm. And I think over the past couple of years, like I said, it's been just a lot more transactional and a lot more, get them in, get them out type of situation, for lack of a, better explanation. But I think being back to Starbucks is just inviting people back in for that human connection, because I think at the end of the day, that's just what everybody just wants, like you said, to be acknowledged. They want to be maybe not necessarily known, but just having that, piece of genuine acknowledgement, I think is huge.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with that. So back to Starbucks is really, it's not just getting back to a Starbucks way of things, but it's a Starbucks way of relationship is kind of how I would, as a poor man quantifier, just say, so you're wanting people to, it's beyond this coming home. It's beyond this hanging out. It's like, hey, this is a familiar place. Yep. When you think about a third place to connect with somebody, Starbucks should be the first place that you jump to, which is funny. So we started with this interview question though, around if they're not ideal for you, maybe they're ideal for somebody else because they fit with Starbucks. Enlighten us a little bit about how you recognize somebody's gifts and placement towards chemistry in the interview process.
Yeah, I think, there's a couple stores around me that are, less than 5 miles. I know their managers. I know their teams. I kind of know how their businesses run, differently from mine. So when I meet somebody, we go through the interview questions. We talk about, work lifestyle, things like that. So sometimes it can be based upon their availability or, the needs of the other stores. But sometimes it also is, I guess I don't really know how to explain it. It's just like a feeling that I get that, hey, this person's going to fit really well with my team. But there's been, people that I have come in and I'm like, oh my gosh, they'd be really great for, this other store.
Yeah.
And I think, again, it's just, knowing those people and knowing their team dynamic and just, kind of feeling out where I think that person would best fit.
I think that this is one of the aha moments I had in our time that I sat down and, for the listeners, for lack of better terms, I interviewed you to talk about the dynamic of why that Starbucks is what it is. And for me, it just has so many implications around people who, go to church, want to be like Jesus. The thought of, what if we talked about the church this way in the sense of, hey, we're so glad to have you. We'd love to have you on our team, but realizing maybe they're not in the best fit or the best opportunity, and then automatically being for the groups around you to be flourishing. That, I would function from a principle that would say, if not you, then who? Then what do we do with this? Recognizing that every life has gifts, has values, being for them and wanting to see them succeed. Because while they could maybe do the task that fits for you, they would probably more enjoy, this one that's more drive-through oriented. It's fast paced. They're going to get in a little more of an introvert, but they do great with details. They do whatever. I'm thinking about the Starbucks on the north side, where we joked about all the high school kids come in and, so mornings when school starts, the counter's just covered in pink drinks, I think is the formal term that you used. And, because at ours, while we have that, we don't have it to that extent, right. And I think our world is missing so many times. We walk around with these blinders on. This is my role. This is my task, not my circus, not my monkeys. Everybody else needs to do what they got to do for themselves. And it's refreshing to see the stewardship of your culture flourish, see the environment as a whole flourish, but then also know that we can help others continue to flourish in this process, have a bigger view than just your role with your store. Now, let's talk about the hard stuff that happens. Okay. So let's say you do hire somebody and it doesn't go well. They interview really well. You think, wow, this person could be our best friend. We could hang out forever, and then all of a sudden they get in that work environment and they're really just not team-oriented. They're not a good fit. How does Starbucks navigate, they want to have a high trust, high performance kind of environment, where we have strong relationships, but we also have strong work. Do you guys have a process in place, or do you have a natural way of helping people take ownership of their fit and their direction at the store?
Yeah. There's, when you start at Starbucks, you're given your role. There's expectations to be upheld. And if you're not following that, then you get held accountable. So wow. For me, this could be good or bad, double-edged sword, I guess. Yeah. I am a benefit of the doubt person. I always want to give somebody a second chance. So if you're not performing, I'd sit down with you and say, hey, Danny, like, what's going on? Like, tell me about how things are going. Try to get more information from them. Sometimes they need a little bit more training, or maybe sometimes it's, they were too nervous to ask about X, Y, Z. So just finding out if it's something that we can teach them, or if it's something that they're just not willing to do.
Yeah.
And in that case, it's kind of like a performance managed situation, and they usually tend to find themselves out.
Okay. What is it? They self-select, they go through an evaluation, they go, hey, it just feels like it's this. And
yeah.
I think what I love about that kind of scenario, though, is if you've stepped into a relational proximity, and I think the right answer is we give everybody the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
If you walk through that process and you find yourself in a scenario where somebody's not doing well and they are in their own self-evaluative process, it gives them the license, the freedom to say, hey, I'm not sure if this is it. Is it, by the time that you hire somebody, I would assume that when it gets to that point, though, there's a gracious way to make it part of the conversation. So do you get to a point in an evaluation where you just kind of let it get awkward, or do a series of questions help engage that? What do you think?
I think, if you're giving them the benefit of the doubt and they're still not rising to the occasion, it becomes a conversation of like, hey, here's what the expectations are. Here's the job description. Like, do you want to do this? I've even asked, like, do you think this is a good fit for you?
Yeah.
And I've had to have some awkward conversations of, hey, I don't think this is a good fit for us.
Yeah. So if you have somebody that just keeps grabbing all the mugs and trying to make a hot cocoa bar, and it's like, hey, hot cocoa we can do, but we are a coffee bar. It's
correct.
Yeah. That's why I never got hired at Starbucks. I kind of wanted more hot chocolate and whatnot. What advice would you say that you would give, though, to young leaders or to rising stars within Starbucks when they're in those moments of feeling stuck? I mean, you look at, so it's a good kid, it's a good adult, but they're not really fitting. How do you help take the high road and take the opportunity of a new trajectory for them? Do you have a certain phrase that you say? Do you have a certain just process? Or because I would gather what we want to do is leave them whole on some level, but then also step forward into something that's a better fit for them.
Yeah, I think something that I've done before is, while performance managing, I'm sure you've heard of a compliment sandwich. So, while pointing out maybe things that they are not performing well in, also, kind of trying to uplift them and say like, hey, you're really good at doing X, Y, Z, maybe not so great at this. Like, maybe you can find something in this realm of work. Yeah. So I think, like you said, trying to keep them whole and, not beating them down is, finding a better spot for them, or highlighting things that, you see as their leader that they do well. Yeah. I think that's something that I've done before as well. So yeah. One of the things I do love about our Starbucks is, one, we have a fireplace. So during the winter, that's the best spot to sit. But every community has a watering hole. And what I mean by that, it's a gathering spot where people come around. And, for us, I'm reminded on a regular basis about even Jesus himself saying, whoever wants to be great, they need to become a servant, first should be last. And he has that conversation, but the reminder is that Jesus came to serve, not to be served, and to give his life as a ransom for many. So I think for us in the church world, we forget, and as a guy who communicates to church people on a regular basis, one of the things we talk about is how Sunday afternoons is the worst time to be working in the restaurant industry, and church people can be real cantankerous. For me as a church person in this environment, where am I getting with this? What's happened is there's a community watering hole at that Starbucks. And I see people who both have a
a church background or a relationship with God or whatever you want to say, and those who don't, and they get a cross-pollination of conversation. And I don't think it's accidental. I think it's part of that back to Starbucks environment and part of what you guys have created there. And I think you know who I'm talking about, because there's some older gentlemen who have clear wisdom, have clear opinions.
Yes.
They sit down, they read the paper, and then they talk about anything from Big Ten sports to crypto to whatever it may be. How do you foster that relationship, knowing that they are who they are, hoping that they come back to Starbucks? But what is it you intentionally do beyond the counter to make sure that they know this is a safe environment for them and you love that they do what they do? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, one of my favorite parts about working at my store is those relationships. People have become friends just sitting in our lobby, chatting with each other, getting to know each other. And I guess, I don't know, I think just fostering relationships in general and allowing people to be who they are, both on, my side of the counter and your side of the counter.
Yeah.
I think it just comes naturally.
Mm-hmm.
I think they come to Starbucks and they meet people that maybe are not like them or have differing opinions as they do, but they're allowed to express that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a welcome experience, and I think it's a priority. I think it's obviously some of the values in and of Starbucks, but what we've noticed in your relationship is you now have mothers and daughters who work there. You have older sisters and younger brothers, multi-generational connections. Tell me how that works, because I would never want to work with one of my parents, let alone one of my siblings, but obviously I think it's a credit to you, but how does that work? How does that come together?
Yeah. I mean, I think it really depends on the relationship of the people as well. Where I have my mother and daughter that work together and they do work separate shifts. They do overlap a little bit, but I think, the mother that works for me, she's been with me for 6 years now, and I think she just has a great experience and wants her daughter to enjoy her work experience as well. So she, said, hey, what if my daughter works here? And, we kind of talked about what that relationship would look like. And they speak Japanese at home.
Okay.
And I told them no Japanese at work. And I was like, you have to call her, by her name. You can't call her mom at work. So that's been kind of funny. Every once in a while happen in the back room, but it is a professional environment as well.
Yeah.
But I think that, that also just creates a little bit of, I don't know how to describe it, but it just, just the relationships.
Yeah.
You just have the closer relationships. So,
well, when you have the clarity of boundaries, but also the clarity of empowerment, people knew who they are. Now, I can straight up tell you, if my mom worked at a Starbucks and I did choose to work with my mom, you would just have words with my mom. My mom would be like, no, if he calls me anything other than mom, this is not going to be a good, healthy work environment for anybody. To which I would have loved to have seen you look at my mom and say, well, then maybe one of us needs to move on, and it's not me. So if my mom's going to listen to this, she's going to be like, oh, Danny, we did not need to go there. So let me just ask you a couple more questions, and then we'll move beyond. Empowering a team in an environment of trust with clear boundaries provides the opportunity for you to serve differently. We talk about proximity, learning how to step up or step forward. When you see somebody that has the potential for more than what they're doing, what's it look like for you to step towards them so that they'll step up? And how do you begin to coach that in them? What is it you begin to do, or what is it you begin to say? Is it something that's formal out in front of everybody? Is it something private? How do you do that?
Yeah. So at Starbucks, every year we do performance conversations. And those are good conversations for us to kind of get in their head and kind of figure out, that sounds bad, but, allow them the opportunity to let us know how they're feeling, if they're interested in moving up.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hey, do you want to be a barista trainer? So there's steps within Starbucks that, allow them to move up without taking a huge leap.
Yeah.
So I think just, fostering that. And we have these little things called green apron cards. So they're really cute. They're just little cards where you can write a little note. But I think it's always nice to hear, hey, you did a good job. But getting a card that says, hey, you did a good job, and being able to go back and look at it and for other people to see, I think that's exciting for them.
Yeah.
So if I see somebody that is, I don't want to say better, but who can do more than what I think that they're doing in the moment, I'll address it with them and just say, hey, I think you'd be really good at XYZ. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's good. What I think I recognize in that, though, is you have both formal and informal responses. You have a process, you have a mechanism, but you also just have the relational proximity to do that. In our world, oftentimes with the church, we're just not sure how to, we're very anecdotal. We're very oh, yeah, they've been doing that for 20 years, or, oh, they've been doing that for this, or, hey, well, yeah, we don't have anybody else, or, whatever it is. But those accountable opportunities towards, what we would say in volunteerism, but you would say within the actual job. And there is a difference between volunteerism and job roles, but a clear intentional process and a clear intentional relationship only fosters that relationship more and more. Now, you wouldn't want to take the time to talk about this, but I'm going to take you there anyway. You have been recognized as doing a good job in your job, and people like working for you.
Sure.
Can we talk about that for a little bit?
Sure.
Can we bring that here?
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about how Starbucks has evaluative processes and what they've kind of marked about you.
Yeah. I mean, oh gosh, I hate talking about myself.
I know you do.
Well, I think during our conversation that we had, I did have a district manager tell me one time that I create a culture of a place where people want to both work for me and with me.
Yeah.
And that kind of goes back to everything that we've already talked about. Is I'm just such a people person, and I just want to get to know people.
Yeah.
And I think a huge part of the culture piece in my store is it just comes so naturally for me, because I've seen other stores where that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Where it's either forced, or maybe, somebody's trying to do it, but it's not being received that way by their team. And that's really hard for me to see, because I don't know how to tell them how to fix it. It's something that I don't think that I can teach somebody. Mm-hmm. It just comes so naturally for me to just be curious about people and, want to know about their life and about them.
Yeah.
And then, I always ask, just like I ask you, hey, what's going on today?
Yeah.
I will ask my team that, hey, how was your weekend? Hey, you just went on vacation. Tell me about it. Do you have any pictures?
Yeah.
So just being interested in them.
Yeah.
I think is,
obviously being genuine, being authentic in those relationships, and then remembering what you asked them, and even being able to continue the conversation is an art form that's pretty well lost in most conversations. I don't think people really have time to hear people out and to walk with them. But I thank you for indulging our conversation here, because I think that it's one thing for a stranger to recognize it, which is great. It's also nice for those who are asking you to kind of create that environment to say, oh, no, it's really happening. It's really being a part of that. And I know that you've worked with Starbucks more than 10 minutes. You've had a chance to see the ebb and flow. You've had a chance to see some cycles of leaders. And I really love just the environment that's there, because there is what I would call a cross-pollination of all sorts of people, cultures, worldviews, and environments. And they are finding a way to live out the mission of Starbucks, and the world around them is benefiting not just from good coffee, but from great relationship. I would say it this way for the church that we're trying to plant at Mission Church is we want to live for God's glory and the world's blessing. How do we help point to the mission of what God has asked of us? And then how do the people around us actually flourish in that? People should like the church. People should like people who say they know Jesus. People should want to, even in their differences, be able to stand alongside and know, hey, I could count on Danny in this situation, or I would trust him with this information, or I'd love to hang out with him sometime and cheer for the Vikings or whatever it may be. And so those things are important. But I just want to say thank you for joining me on this, because obviously when I started showing up at Starbucks, you weren't like, hey, I bet he has a podcast. I'd like to join him on that. But kudos to you. If any of our listeners are in Maple Grove and have not stopped at the Starbucks on Wedgwood, it's the best one to stop at in the region, in the city. I think the people that are inside and working there are exceptional on so many different levels. But I think it's the truest Starbucks experience I've ever had. I've been around the United States and I've gone to a lot of Starbucks. Some of them do great with your drink. Some of them do great with the room. Some of them do great with just the overall, the feel of what a Starbucks should look like. But they don't usually get it all mastered together. And it's nice to see a drive up it may have multiple cars in it, but it's always flowing and going. It's always nice to come in and realize that you're being seen and recognized in there, and you have the freedom to be yourself in there. It's just a really very, for lack of better terms, a magical experience. Maybe we should just talk about Disney. So you're welcome. Well, hey, friends, thanks for joining us. We appreciate you being a part of this bonus episode and getting to meet my friend Gina. Just pray that we would always stay in step with what the Spirit is doing in the world around us. And until next time, we will catch you then.